Welcome everyone to the Community Standing Committee. Welcome live streamers. I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet today. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So in addition to, so today we have present our Community Standing Committee members, being Councillor Godwin Smith, Macadow, Cypher and Brindlecombe. We've no council observers, obviously, in the gallery, and and Mayor Hayes as well. Moving into the committee, do we have any leave of absence for future meetings? For myself, I wish to request a leave of absence for the April meeting, which I think is on the 16th of April. May I have a mover? I'll move that for you. Councillor Cypher, and a second by Councillor Godwin Smith. A show of hands, thank you. All in favour? Thank you for that. So, confirmation of the minutes from the previous meeting. You'll note that we received two versions of the Community Standing Committee agenda for last meeting. The second the second version had the minutes included in it. Can everyone please draw their attention to the minutes, and may I please have a mover for those minutes? Thank you, Councillor Cypher, and a seconder, Councillor Brindlecombe. Is there any changes that need to be made to those minutes? No? I'll take silence as a no. May I have a show of hands if this is a true record? Thank you. All in favour? So, business arising out of the minutes. Is there any business that anyone would like to raise?
Madam Chair, I'll just note through you the resolution from that was moved by Councillor Macadow, seconded by Mayor Hayes, regarding an update on the watering for significant trees and plants in the area. So that has unfortunately been postponed to next month. Full detail there, but our manager of Parks and Recreation, Community Recreation Facilities, will be able to provide an interim update on where we are at this stage. But that full report will be presented next week.
Great. Thank you very much for that. So if there's no business arising out of the minutes, we'll move on to the review of outstanding needs and actions. So if everyone could please go to that report. Is there any actions that anyone would like to raise or question? No? Okay, thank you then. Moving on to the agenda items, the future agenda items. So there has been some work on future agenda items which have not made it into this document, but hopefully next month we'll see a more fuller representation of what agenda items will be coming up in the near future.
Through the Chair, if we have an agenda item, do we just discuss it with you and Daniel?
Yes, please do. Thank you very much, Councillor Cypher. And that's also a call out to anyone that if there's any topic that you wish to be brought to the Community Standing Committee, please feel free to raise that. Okay, moving on to petitions.
Madam Chair, none received.
No, thank you very much. Material personal interest, conflicts of interest, personal gifts and benefits. Is there anything that anyone wishes to declare?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to declare an interest in item number 11.5 on today's agenda, that I have a perceived conflict of interest and I'll be leaving the room.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So, in relation to 11.5, which is the event budget for McIntyre Park, I suggest that we defer that report actually to the general meeting. If everyone agrees on that, may I please have a mover and a seconder for that deferment? So Councillor Grimblekine and Councillor Godwin-Smith seconding. All in favour, thank you. I'm not sure what you do actually.
I don't know what I do there. Do I vote on that?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep, thank you. All in favour? Thank you very much. So that report will be moved to this afternoon. Okay. Right. Moving on to the body of our committee meeting. So the first report is the Emerald Botanic Gardens Playground Renewal Project and shade sale. I will pass over to Daniel to introduce this report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll advise our Managing Committee of Resident Facilities. So councillors, this report is to give you a little bit of an update and also request that you endorse our position to proceed with the supply and installation of the hard roof shade structures over specific areas as it's there. So the team's been working on this one for a little while. It's partly funded through council and the local government race and multicultural affairs under the local government's grants program. So Joe, can you detail that for the committee, please?
So thank you, Daniel. Morning, everyone. So with this project, you'll see there's a number of elements we've already delivered, and it's been going quite well in terms of delivering within our own budget. So we have sufficient capacity within the existing project budget to look at delivering shade structures over many of the playground elements that were either existing or have been put into the facility as a result of the grant project. The unfortunate situation, or the situation with it, is that while we expected or hoped that those shade structures would be able to deliver under the $200,000 tender threshold, the prices that came back have gone slightly over that. So as a result, I'm requesting the committee's endorsement of us proceeding with the identified supplier in order to deliver the project in a timely fashion, as opposed to going back out to tender. So advice that has been received from Council's procurement coordinator has indicated that is an acceptable way of moving ahead with the committee's endorsement.
Is there any questions regarding?
The shade structures weren't initially in the scope.
To the best of my knowledge, no.
Yeah, and we have here some structures that we've got. Is these the actual structures that we're looking at? Yeah, there's no actual diagrams, or there's a little bit I'm quoting. But the cantilever structure that's photographs on page 11, is that exactly what we're looking at? What direction are these facing, and what are the implications of flood heights on these structures?
So in terms of flood heights, Councillor, I'm not in a position where I can answer that question. I need to obtain further detail in relation to that. Insofar as what the makeup of the structures will be, it depends on the particular location within the area. So based on trying to minimise the impact on existing hard stand areas and how best to install the shade structures based on that existing infrastructure, some may be cantilevered to obtain the best outcome. Some will be a full post-construction, if you will. So it's been a matter of fitting the shade structures around as much as possible the existing infrastructure to minimise any rework or disruption to the existing infrastructure, as I mentioned.
There's appears to be only one tenderer in this process, or it implies that in the report there's only one? Or it doesn't imply that there's been open tender arrangements?
There's been several companies that have been approached in order to obtain quotations from, so it wasn't just the one company that provided the quotation for within the report itself, so apologies for not being explicit in relation to that. there were numerous companies approached, many of whom failed to provide quotations, even after continuous follow-up in order to try and obtain details from them. So this is the company that has worked with us continuously and been good enough at least to provide details and quotations and work with us to try and obtain reasonable solutions to, like I said, fitting around that existing construction.
Jared, the question I have is, there's two pieces of work to be done. One is the sealing of the car park and entry lane, and the other one is the shading of the equipment. You noted that you expected that the quote would be under 200,000 and it's coming in at 240. Does that impact on the sealing of the car park and entry lane at all? That being that additional 40,000?
No, Madam Chair, it's all contained within the existing budget, so
Okay.
it's sort of worked out quite nicely in terms of using the overall total.
Yeah, okay. I know that the centre part of the original playground, the roundabout, I guess it is in the middle, like I hear a lot of feedback about how hot that area gets. Will these shade structures provide any sort of shadow or shade for that centre part of the playground?
Yes, Madam Chair, that's the intention, to try and provide as much shade as possible over those existing pieces of infrastructure, as well as some of the new ones, such as the mouse wheel and the other fitness equipment.
Okay.
Given the size of the cableway or flying fox apparatus, that element won't be able to be shaded,
Yeah.
but all those other elements will be captured within this project.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I believe that all parks in our region all play equipment should be covered. I think in this climate we need that, so I'm very supportive of that shade. My question in the whole of the design of not just the Botanical Gardens upgrade, but all parks in our region, what consideration do we give to all abilities for inclusion of all people at playgrounds? And I'd like to see that become incorporated, particularly into the Botanical Gardens, if it isn't already included, because there are a lot of people with disabilities in our region who are not being catered for. And I just think it's really, really important to be inclusive of all people. So I think in all future design, we should take that into consideration.
I would say that it's already being taken into consideration, considering the types of playground equipment that are already there. But Jared, can you speak to that?
Yes, certainly, Madam Chair. So it's a very good point you raised, Councillor Cypher, and admittedly it's not always something that does come up as a consideration, or at least have the presence in which it should have. So as the Madam Chair alluded to, the Botanics, the existing equipment does have some ability. I think it's the roundabout element can accommodate wheelchairs and people with disabilities. But having said that, there's certainly scope for other elements. So it is something that does need to be considered in all future upgrades or works to play equipment to ensure that it's front of mind and is planned for properly when that's occurring.
Because wheelchairs aren't the only thing that makes, that contributes to disability. So it's not just wheelchair access, it's sensory, it's everything. So I just think it's really, really important that we do, and if we're doing that already, fantastic. But in everything in our community, whether it's a playground or whether it's a street or whatever it is, it needs to take that into consideration.
Jared, just a question in relation to the procurement side of things, and I note that Urban Play is a preferred contractor for the installation of the shade, and I think straight up it's awesome. You're under budget, you've got an opportunity to put shade over the facilities. That is a great result, and I think that just will finish those things off really nicely. But in the recommendation there, it says part 2 is about the area, it says through an approved contractor via local buy, so it kind of, the recommendation's leaving it open. But I noted in the report that your preferred contractor is Urban Play. Do we have any local contractors that are within the local buy system that we might have also been able to approach, or is that too specialised?
None that I'm aware of, Councillor Glickman-Smith, no. So local buy is open to any contractors to get onto that system and be registered. And I guess the reason that I put that in the resolution is that by going through local buy as they are, get the right terminology at the moment, they are approved suppliers. So they've gone through a process, and as a consequence, we don't necessarily have to go to tender as a result of engagement through that format. But yes, not aware of any local contractors being on it. There's nothing precluding them from being there. And to the best of my knowledge, our project manager did also contact local suppliers or local builders to see if they may be interested in doing the project.
So did that you think that, I mean, that would be good if we knew that had happened. I feel better about that if you know, look, I'm sure Urban Play will do a great job, but I think once again, if we are limiting project outcomes just because we're using one platform, in this case being local buy,
we didn't limit the scope in which we approached the market by going through local buy, so that wasn't the way in which we've actually obtained the quotations for this project. We've gone and approached several different companies in relation to it, but not via local buy, because again, we didn't think that it would be an item that would go over the $200,000 tender threshold. Given it has, in order for us to ensure that we're still meeting the requirements from a local government perspective, we will now engage the play through local buy, given they are registered on the local buy website, again, in order to ensure that we're doing things correctly.
Okay. Councillors, if there's...
Sorry, Chair. We've got 16 polls, 16 posts, all of reflective public geld. It's going to aesthetically withdraw from the horizontal view of these things. Is there an option there that they could be dulled down? Because this amount of polls is going to aesthetically look pretty ordinary, as opposed to black that dissipates and highlights the infrastructure that's going to be used. Is a thought for me. And the other thing is, I noticed here in the quote from Urban Play that in the inclusions is guttering down pipes to ground level on page 10, but yet on their quotation form on page 8, it's an exclusion. So are we putting up gutters that capture leads, or are we letting it free fall from the corrugation or whatever the roof profile is straight to ground?
Maybe we could have a rainwater tank and we put gutters on it, that garden.
No suggestions?
Chair, I need to check in relation to the specifics in relation to the guttering and downpipes, so I'll have to talk to...
One's just stating from the same company that it's an inclusion, and one's stating it's an exclusion. And I can't see the purpose of having gutters in a leafed area that are going to block and create higher maintenance. The parks are usually underutilised in a rainy day, and we don't require shade on a rainy day, so my thoughts are we don't really require them, but that's only mine.
Certainly, there's the flip side of that, I guess, Councillor McIndoe, is that if there's a significant storm event and if the water is running onto a grassed area, it can create erosion issues. So there's obviously two sides to that equation. So we just need to be conscious of that, you've rightly pointed it out, that it's something that needs to be clarified. In relation to the post, I'll seek clarification in relation to, are you looking for us to ensure that they are powder coated in some way to reduce the visual impact, or are you looking for us to try and reduce the number?
No, it's purely the, when you look at these structures, it doesn't matter where you go, you're looking at a playground, not shiny posts. And the shiny posts, if take away the endings of what it is, doesn't matter whether it's a playground or whatever. And I just feel that those vertical posts would be give greater impact, depending on the cost, of course.
Thank you.
So Jared, is there any possibility, like have we explored whether there are any local shed shed building contractors locally that might be able to undertake this work, or
Again, councillor,
through local buy, that is?
through local buy, no, I'm not aware of any.
Could we, as part of this process, just make sure that we do explore that option if you're using the local buy platform?
I can certainly check that.
Sorry, through Madam Chair, was it, Urban Play, if they complete their pre-qualifications, they were on local buy now, is that your understanding?
That's correct, yes. They've been on local buy for many years.
Just, we do need to move on, but I just want to ask for specific inclusion. You did notice that, you did mention that, sorry, the Flying Fox was too big to shade, but even if you can provide a bit of shade over the tabletop platform, because obviously that's where kids are going to be standing for the longest, waiting for the team, and I do know that it's not shaded part right now, so if you can put shade in the shade, that would be wonderful. Thank you. The reports here before us, are you happy? Is there any further questions?
No,
I have a move of Councillor Slifer as a second. Councillor Wimbercombe, show of hands, thank you. All in favour, and are you? Sorry, I said it all in favour, but so may I please have a show of hands? Who's for? What are you?
My concerns are relating around the local buy, the fact that we've gone over, and are we really compliant? Because I'm not reading anything there, and I know that when we've done this under previous situations in the full council meeting, we've handled it a little bit differently when we procure outside our, and I think you're really asking us to procure outside of the normal realms. You're saying that we've got the right justification. Have we got the right wording?
I suggest we take it to the general meeting.
Okay. In light of the content of the report, let's defer. Is everyone happy that we defer to the general meeting? May I please have a mover to defer? Councillor Wimbercombe?
Just a bit worried about the process, because you actually.
Yes, you're going to have to do an amended file, which we filed on that the other week too.
Right.
Yeah, so that I moved it, it was a seconder, the motion's got to be put.
Yeah,
If
you
it
put the
fails,
motion, we had a show of hands, there was just one you weren't sure of, and
you did right.
We right.
Right, so
You haven't
it's
declared the
one.
result, Madam Chairman.
you
You
haven't.
haven't declared the result. You will seek clarification for how people voted.
Yeah,
So do I have
You
to
do.
have a show of hands for the first motion?
yeah,
Or do I?
What you've done is you've got your mover, you've got your seconder,
It's
you
got
put it to the vote, it was ambiguous, you didn't declare the result, so it's still live. You've asked for clarification, and we're not too sure what Councillor Ashgrove
Show of hands again.
saying. So until you say carry, it's not effective. And if you get a sense that there's not unanimous support for it, you then have the options available under the standing orders to take it to a general meeting. But I really think, I didn't want to speak, actually, I'm here to observe it. I think for the sake of changing part 2, to not be so specific about local buy, I think you'll have everyone in attend on it.
Yeah,
Because that's been very specific in saying that,
that's right.
must track do it through local buy. There won't be any local shed companies pre-qualified on local buy because the process is quite complex to obtain that status. This is an embellishment and extra after the scope. So there's no requirement that you must stay with local buy or urban play to finish it off. This is a fresh thing. This is, we've got some money left over, we decided we want to put shade on it so you could get quotes from locals, or you could go down local buy route, but you shouldn't need to be so specific about local buy in the resolution. If you fix that up, I think we'll get it through. If you don't, you have the option to take it to the full council.
Okay. Councillors, there's a suggestion there around changing the resolution. Councillor McIndoe, how do you feel about that?
You know, great input, because it gives people a scope
It's not,
to pursue, and then it's not, we're not doing it. So I'm happy to look at that there, so.
We're supportive of the structure, it's just the process needs a little bit more
Just
time.
remove those last 6 words, Madam Chairman.
Okay.
You're not required,
Thank you. No, thank you. I do also appreciate your input. So the motion's being amended.
Do we need someone to move the amendment?
Well,
Because it's been moved.
yes. So
It
councillor,
hasn't been carried. So we don't require that.
councillor Cypher and councillor Brimacombe, are you still happy to be the mover and seconder on this amended resolution? Yes, I was. Great, thank you. May I have a show of hands, please? So, right, unanimous, thank you. The motion has been carried. Thank you.
Madam Chair, could I suggest that the show of hands would you actually ask for and against?
Okay.
So I'm just saying this, or I'm just saying show of hands, and I think I'm waiting for further instructions on.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
So moving on to 11.2, Create Cultural Futures Heritage Action Plan. I'll pass over to Daniel to introduce this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We invite Bernadine and Karen down for the details of this report. But councillors will be familiar with the Creative Cultural Futures and Heritage strategy. So this is the extension to that, the action plan, which has also been before council. So this is an opportunity to finally endorse this action plan. So an exciting time. I'll let Bernadine and Karen take you through that.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Councillor Daniels, through the chair. Arts and culture have an important role to play in our community. The Central Highlands is home to many diverse communities who value and respect differences of cultural background, artistic expression and lifestyle, which is reflected and celebrated by the many arts, cultural and heritage groups throughout the region. In 2016, Council endorsed the Creative Cultural Future Strategy. However, there is no action plan to implement this strategy. So an action plan has been created. This will help prioritise budgeting for arts, culture and heritage projects and offer direct linkages to the operational and corporate plans. Extensive consultation has occurred annually since the development of the Creative Strategy in collaboration with the Central Highlands Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee. Engagement has also regularly taken place with community, including related community groups, as well as councillors and the executive leadership team of council. I'll now hand you over to our Arts and Cultural Officer to present this draft Creative Cultural Futures and Heritage Action Plan.
Thanks, Bernadine. Through the chair. The draft Creative Cultural Futures and Heritage Action Plan outlines the various arts, cultural and heritage objectives within the Creative Cultural Futures Strategy 2016 to 2026, which was endorsed by Council on the 24th of October 2016, and the 7 categories in the Heritage Management Framework that was endorsed on the 10th of July 2018. The draft action plan organises the content to match the 6 objectives within the Council's Creative Cultural Future Strategy. The objectives are consolidation and revitalisation, community and celebration, regional identity and sense of place, positive partnerships, celebrating diversity and future directions. Based on community feedback, one new goal has been added under objective number 6 in the Futures direction to cover arts, cultural and heritage training. It is a 2-year action plan covering projects and programs scheduled for the implementation and action between July 2018 and June 2020. The action plan lists prioritised projects and actions funded in the current financial year 2018-19 and the next financial year for budget consideration. A second in-house document called Creative Cultural Futures and Heritage Future Aspiration lists all the other potential future projects, ideas, activities that don't make it into the current action plan. This is a working document that will be consulted on annually and will inform future action plans. With your endorsement, this action plan ensures we continue to enhance Central Highlands' quintessential character and its creative communities across the region. This report requests that Council endorse the draft Creative Cultural Futures and Heritage Action Plan 2018 to 2020 financial years.
Councillor, questions? Are there any questions for Karen?
I think Karen's been very thorough in her engagement and in terms of the broader community and keeping us as a council up to date with where this is at, and it's a wonderful document and I'm happy to move it.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Goldsmith, Secretary Councillor Sypher, yes, thank you, Karen. This document has been to us a number of times and you've been very receptive of feedback on each occasion, and it's lovely to see it completed and ready for endorsement. So I have a mover and a seconder. May I please have a show of hands for and against, and so against, all in favour, thank you. So moving on to, thank you very much for that. Yes, moving on to the Central Highlands Arts Cultural Advisory Committee Planning Meeting, so the CHACAC. Once again, I've got Karen and so Daniel, I'll pass that over to you to introduce that report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Council, this report, as always, provides the minutes from the CHACAC, this specifically from the annual meeting of the 31st of January and the Blackwood meeting of the 14th of February. So really important highlighting the minutes there under the recommendations to A and B for what to be noted specifically, but if Bernadette and Karen, who's going to note that one.
Thanks, Daniel. Through the chair, this decision report is brought to council to be received and endorsed. The CHACAC meeting notes from meetings held on the 31st of January in Emerald and the 14th of February in Blackwater. Noting actions from this meeting being project documentation and ongoing discussion have been requested regarding the Carnarvon Artist Retreat project with the Central Queensland Regional Arts Services Network and Council's Regional Arts Development Fund bid for 2019 to 2020 financial years is to be done before the 5th of April 2019. Over to the floor for this report to be received and minutes to be endorsed.
Councillors, do you have any questions for Karen? Thank you. And I know there's some great events either discussed or coming up that I mentioned in this report. There's and Councillor Robin Smith, obviously you attend this meeting as well.
And
So,
Councillor Brimble-Combe.
sorry, and Councillor Brimble-Combe and obviously. So this future looks great for this committee. So if there's no questions, can I please have a show of hands? Sorry, Miller, thank you. Councillor Brimble-Combe and secondary Councillor Godwin-Smith. May I please have a show of hands for in favour of this report? Thank you. All in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. So moving on to, we have deferred the 11.5, the event budget for Macro Park, and we move on to 11.6. Oh, sorry, pardon me, 11.4, I've skipped one. I'm not doing a good day today, unfortunately. So 11.4, the Community Planning Advisory Group meeting. I'll pass over to Daniel to introduce that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll pass straight over to Bernadette to highlight these for us.
Thanks, Daniel, and through the chair. This report presents the Community Planning Advisory Group meeting notes of the meeting held in Emerald on the 25th of January 2019. There were 4 actions from the meeting. One of the highlights was the Community Reference Group Marketing and Membership campaign commenced in February 2019. I now hand over to the floor for these meeting notes to be received by council. Sorry.
Thank you. So Any questions, please, from councillors?
Probably just on the campaign, the recruitment campaign, has that has commenced? Yeah, right.
Recruitment campaign?
For the
CRGs, for the people involved, yeah. I think it's an ongoing thing, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
Certainly at any of the CRGs that I attend, we are always actively trying to recruit members. But Bernadine, is there anything you would like to mention?
Through the chair, it's just a little bit more focus and intensity, a little bit more in dialoguing directly with their CRG members, and we want to put it in more in newsletters, just a little bit more out there, brochures, Facebook, school newsletters, just a little bit more broadening the nets in the communication tools.
So, well, just on that,
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
No,
I'm
sure.
That's what I was just
Yes.
asking.
And if it's not, it's because it missed the last deadline of the newsletters, but it's certainly going in the Blackwater Banter, the Bohemia newsletter, the Bohemia Chatter, and if it's missed the editions, that will be happening. Cassie and MB have raised it already at their CRG meetings, and so has Annette. So we firstly wanted to go through and really explain to the CRG members, this is what we're going to do. Do you agree with it? Do you want to be involved? And that's what started in February. I know the feedback from Emerald CRG, they actually took it away and wanted to do more themselves. Springsure, they were happy for Cassie to go and do her thing, and so much, that's why Cassie spent the weekend on Springsure at their markets, had an open day welcoming, whilst it's welcome to town people, but it's also subliminally trying to promote the CRGs as well. So it's those sorts of activities that we want to get more and more involved with. Gemfields were a little bit more selective. They want to more fill the vacant sectors. So it's working with those CRGs to make sure we're not overruling them or just taking on our own ideas too. The gentle approach.
Okay, well, I'll just note we are nearly, halfway through March, and I think my concern with that approach is we're dwindling away. Some CRGs, if you just engage in one or two that are left, we should be, if that's what we want, that's what CPAG's agreed, and that's what we're endorsing. Let's just let people know that they can be involved. But I've just not seen anything in those broader, like you mentioned, Facebook newsletters and so on. And again, the recruitment seems to be just back to the CRGs and a couple of other law platforms. And I really, if that's what we're doing, I really want to see it go a bit broader. Let's engage a bit more. Let's tell people about the opportunity, because in the meantime, we're still having CRG meetings and the numbers are small, and we're investing a lot of resources in supporting these small groups of people, which we want desperately to grow. You've got the direction. Let's get on with the campaign.
Okay. Yeah. Can I just say though, that it is up to people in the local community. Like I've just recruited, that's a lie. CRG in Capella has just recruited, and it's a tough gig in Capella, has just recruited 3 of the most people who wouldn't normally come to something like that, because someone went and tapped them on the shoulder and said, hey, listen, get involved and have your say. And they said, oh, okay, well, this is where we will go to have our say. So, I mean, it is a matter of actually going tapping people on the shoulder.
Yeah, but I'm not a big fan of that approach on its own either. I think that looks like you're handpicking people. So, while well intended, I think that broader, we just need to let people know that they are what they are. I mean, there's still an element that just think they're a little secret group that,
And that's what we broke down in Capella, wasn't it? That they thought we were a secret group, and we've now broken that down by actually going and tapping a couple of people on the shoulder who can get the message out there really well that we aren't a secret society. Yeah.
Look, through the chair, all very relevant points, and we'll certainly go for it. Cassie has actually just run all the roles, just to get to know them too, because that's one, Cassie being new to her role, that was one thing I'd like her to do. And she actually run all the Ralston people just to get feedback why even the Ralston people aren't turning up. And one thing that came out was that they're all volunteer fatigued, they're very tired with the drought and the bushfire events. So every little community we have, it's probably just not so ubiquitous and out there of the work that we have been doing in the back rooms. So that's some feedback too about the Ralston people, and
I could have told you that.
yeah,
But look, that's okay, but look, we could spend all day talking
Yeah,
about
sure.
it, but if we're having a campaign, which is what this report says,
Sure.
I'm not seeing the campaign
Yeah,
out
sure.
in the community.
and that's a fair point.
And, you know, as I said, it's all well and good to tap people on the shoulder. That's one aspect of this, but let's just promote them. Promote them. There might be people there that we've not even thought of that might like to. Yeah, and just the promotion of them is a good thing, so let's see where it goes, and then I think, again, we need to, depending on the outcome of that campaign, I think we need to have another conversation about the future.
Through the chair, very relevant points, and I will certainly pass that back on to the team, and I report back with, we've done these school newsletters, or, you know, the whole
And if you-
spectrum.
And just
Yes.
another bit of advice, if you're not real sure whether you've covered off on every available communication engagement platform in each of the communities, just give us a tinkle and we can make sure that you cover all bases.
Through the chair, thank you very much, it's great.
Thank you very much, Melanie. So if there's no further questions, councillor Cyphers mover, I'll let councillor McIndoe.
Oh, sorry.
No. Councillor McIndoe seconded. Thank you. Show of hands for the motion. Thank you. All in favour, carried. Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. So moving on, skipping 11.5, event budget for McIndoe Park, and moving on to the Australia Day report, 11.6.
Madam Chair, in the absence of Andrea and Nicole to present this report, I'll quickly run through it, not to devalue its content, but obviously the Australia Day celebrations this year were quite large, and as you can read through all of the particular details there for each area, I'd like to acknowledge the significant contribution that our new events officer Nicole Ricard's made to ensuring that all the events across the region were done in a very diligent fashion. And you'll note here, which accompanies the report, some feedback, so some statistics we took again live at the time with some iPads and some other surveys to capture people's satisfactions of the day. And as you can see there, there's really nothing concerning from that feedback. It's all quite good. Happy to take any questions on the report. So happy to move on given our time.
Yeah, it's a shame that Nicole or Andrea weren't available. I have some feedback, and whether I can provide it to them outside of this committee, but is there anyone else that would like to speak or asking questions?
I'd like an opportunity to provide some input into the shaping of the events in the future. And, you know, we have a committee that, well, we've allocated some more resources here in-house, but there is a big focus on Emerald and Emerald celebrations. Remembering we have communities that have amazing volunteers and individuals who are recognised, they are just as important and as amazing as the people here in Emerald. But the focus is so Emerald orientated that I'd love it if we could have some sort of a committee that involves maybe some councillors so that we can make sure that the events in our communities are the very best they can be and they are supported in a meaningful way, because it's not just this Australia Day thing, it's like when we have National Tree Day, you know.
When Australia Day.
You know, it's just,
It doesn't spread.
You get free trees, free gloves, free everything in Emerald, and you get some trees at Ralston that have been donated by a local person, and maybe half a dozen trees that have come from council. There's no, you know, it just feels like at times we're very second rate out there. And as I said, there's amazing people doing amazing things out there, and I just feel like we could make it better for those other events and functions and things that are outside of Edinburgh.
No, thank you, Councillor Golden-Smith, for raising that. That was exactly the same feedback that I had as well. To you know, each of these Australia Day events have equal importance, and I do know that certainly the support and the media, the post-media, does focus predominantly on it. I would like to see that change too. But otherwise, the events were great. You know, the Emerald event was excellent, but you know, there are some improvements that we can make.
I think so. Like, as you know, I attended a Townsville event and their numbers were very low this year as well. And I think that weekend, I don't know what's going on there, but our numbers are dropping off. But I would like to see us just give a bit more input and have some more influence on the shaping of those community events, so they are really hitting the mark.
Look, there's probably an opportunity also to provide input into the awards as well, to have a little bit of a review of that too. So I don't know if is that something that you could take on to organise an opportunity for people to provide input?
Yeah, through the Madam Chair, I've made an idea that I'll work with our events and comms team to design what that looks like, whether it's a committee with councils on board, or we'll make sure we get across all the councils to understand what best is going to suit the designing of not only Australia Day events, but all of our regional
If I could add to that, I'm a little bit with you, Daniel. Does it need to be another committee, you know, another formalised committee? I think the message is incredibly clear that councillors would like to sit down with the events coordinator prior to anything coming to councillors to ensure that we've got community spread on an equal and fair thing, and I don't know whether it needs a committee as such.
I don't think there was any suggestions of the committee.
No, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's not. It's just to add value to what exists now, really.
So through the chair, so the events coordinator, who it's the specific role, but do they do events outside Emerald? I thought that they only did Emerald.
So for clarity, our events officer does all of the civic events that the council is responsible for across our entire region. So there is a disproportionate number of events that are held in Emerald, so it might feel that way, but our events officer.
Well, no, I thought when the Australia Day thing came up and there was only all this stuff about Emerald, and I thought I rang and asked, were the regional events happening? Because there was this focus, and they said, no, the events coordinator is only doing Emerald. What happens in the communities is up to the regional officers, area officers.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. So again, based on the proportionate size of the Emerald event, our events officers primarily consumed with supporting that event, but there is support provided to the area officers in those areas. But it is not enough. We would love to have an events officer to cover all of the areas, but it's not solely isolated to the one event. Our events officer is regional based.
I thank Josh for the fantastic work he did at Blackwater, because the event went very well. Not as big an attendance as perhaps last year, but that was more in timing, as in the shifts of everyone that were involved. So I'd like to thank Josh and all the team from Blackwater. They did a fantastic job there. So one thing I would like to see is a Australia Day award go to one person for all Central Islands, and my suggestion would be that, you know, the people in each area be the names put forward, and possibly the Australia Day race meeting, which normally follows, and the race named after those people. That be the event where that person's named.
In the previous council, we actually, when the council day race day was, we used to get each of the Australia Day citizens board actually come and presented the trophies on that day, but that obviously fell over.
But all good suggestions. In the interest of time, Daniel will organise an opportunity for us to provide input into the future events. May I please have, we'll move forward now, so may I please have a mover for to receive this report. Thank you, Councillor McIntyre, and the seconder was Councillor Brimacombe. May I please have a show of hands for resolution? The Thank you all in favour. No one's against. Thank you. Thank you. No one against. Carried. Okay, moving on to 11.7, council buildings and facilities maintenance. I'll hand over to Daniel to introduce this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillors, this report was requested earlier this year through Councillor Dr. Smith to get an understanding of our process internally for maintenance of our facilities, and Jared's pieced together with the team what that looks like in terms of our inspections and maintenance is carried out from a scheduling perspective. So any further details we can flesh out and provide you there, but this report specifically identifies that scheduling of that work for council's maintenance of facilities. Jared, can you run us through that?
Thank you, Daniel. So as you'll see in the report, it's provided some detail in relation to what facilities we currently look at in terms of those asset condition assessments and doing those inspections, as well as what the current regime is or all lack thereof, and what we need to do in terms of improvement. So I have worked through some of the detail there with the assets and facilities team and highlighted the need for an improvement in relation to the thoroughness in which they approach the items. So there has been further review, and it will be an item for continuing improvement into the future.
Councillors, is there any questions that you'd like to ask of Jared during the report?
Yeah, thank you very much, Jared, for bringing this back. And I guess what prompted the request in the first place was I think there's at times where some of our council assets are actually not included on registers to be checked. Like this is all important work that needs to happen, you know, general asset condition assessment, termite inspections, pest spraying, aircon servicing, test and tack, whatever it is. It just appeared through our conversations that perhaps some of our community facilities weren't actually on the register for those checks to have occurred, and pest inspection was one of them. But so we're confident we've got everything on there, and I know when the amenities block blew away at Rolleston, that was one that was not registered for insurance, for example. So that gives me a table, but it doesn't give me any confidence that everything is captured in the system that needs to be captured. So I know I can understand and see there that you have, you know, a good methodology around what needs to happen and when it needs to happen and how long you allocate to those activities. But I guess it's making sure that what needs to be in the system is in the system and then there's no gaps. So that's an order almost.
Councillor Gordon-Smith, you're absolutely correct. It is an item that we as an organisation, my particular area, does need to work on to ensure that we do have thorough lists that are checked and capture that detail and information. So it's not something that I can sit here and unfortunately say with my hand on my heart that we're doing it well. We need to go back and really analyse what we do or don't have in relation to our systems, and ensure that moving ahead we understand what facilities we have, we capture when they need to be assessed, we ensure that the insurance information is correct, all those sorts of items, and check and double check to make sure that we have a thorough system in place. So unfortunately, yes, this is high level methodology. I don't have the detail at this point to be able to say to you that we have the level of accuracy yet to be able to fully capture all of our facilities. So it's a work in progress.
So what opportunity exists at the moment to pick those things up that might be missed? What would it be? Would it be when we have all the insurance? Would it be, you know, how do we fix it?
There's there's a thorough body of work happening at the moment through our asset management team in relation to capturing the detail. And similarly, our insurance section is also doing a great job in relation to trying to work with us all to capture the detail and ensure those lists are accurate. So it needs to, I guess, filter down to the lower levels, if you will, and I say that respectfully, to ensure that we have the right detail and we're getting out in the field and looking at individual locations and assets and ensuring that they're captured thoroughly. So the insurance component, as example, we need to make sure that we've got the right facilities on there, but some that don't warrant being insured are not on there, so that we're not increasing our premium for no good reason, if you will. So it does need to be continually reviewed, but there are moves afoot within the organisation to get that information much more robust than what it is.
And look, I must say that through the game plan platform, we've identified a lot of that. And whilst there's not there is infrastructure out there that doesn't require to be insured, it still requires protection and inspection and compliance and all that sort of stuff. So we've got to be careful not to see something based on an insurance liability issue. It needs to be broader than that. And I think that's one platform that the folks people play, all that sort of stuff. Because in the spreadsheet that you provide, we're not really encapsulating every component. But there's 14 facilities there under facilities. We have hundreds, and the work that Game Plan has done to capture a lot of that in the sporting arena needs to be duplicated, and they've worked closely with ASEC, which has highlighted a lot of these issues. So I think it needs further work. I don't believe that the 151 hours or whatever it is that we're looking at is sufficient, but we must protect the assets we have. So I believe more work needs to be done in this area.
Just through the chair, if I can, and I'm not sure whether this may alleviate Councillor Godwin's confidence in how we move forward, but certainly the TOTO project in regards to the asset management module will have incorporated within that aspects in regards to inspection and routine, those sorts of things, and certainly driving that improvement tools that we don't necessarily currently have. And I think also the funding that's been provided through asset management in regards to condition assessment reports, significant funding being provided for lots of our asset types, including buildings and facilities and what have you. So in that space, we're improving as an organisation, but there also would need to be some work in regards to data migration from the current system to the new system, and that provides opportunity for identifying those things that perhaps where there are gaps and perhaps are not on asset registers. But there does need to be a validation process that would be undertaken. I would envisage that would come from the funding provided to the asset management team, which is significant to undertake that work.
Good point, Michelle. Thank you. Great. Thank you very much.
No, Chair, Michelle backed up on what I was going to sit down. Provided well, which is essentially our maintenance schedules are built from our asset management registers, and the gap analysis will be something that occurs between now and the go live time for TOTO to ensure that our new asset registers, which are built into the TOTO system, are fully comprehensive. So it is a piece of work that we can bring back more information, hopefully provide comfort to the councillors that all of our assets are captured appropriately in the system, and then the maintenance accordingly is allocated.
If there's no further questions for Joe, the resolution there to receive the report is in front of you. Mark has moved. Thank you, Councillor Gordon-Smith, and the seconder. Hi there, Councillor McIndoe with two hands. With the seconder for that. May I please have a show of hands for that report? Thank you. That's and no one against, carried, thank you. Okay, moving on to 11.8, Bohemia Hall and Springshore Showgrounds Disability Grant. I'll pass over to Daniel to introduce that report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll quickly pass over to Jared. As you can see, councillors, this report is to provide some options or potential options for the Bohemia Disability Grant and Springshore Showgrounds Disability Grant tools.
Thank you, Daniel. So, in relation to the Bohemia Hall Disability Grant, there was a meeting on site last week, the week before, to have a look at the facility and meet with representatives of the community in relation to their concerns about the location of the existing ramp. So the report provides some detail there about the concerns that they have. As a result of the meeting, we're investigating options to relocate the ramp currently, to then go back to the community with to discuss the feasibility of those options and whether they can work in relation to meeting building code requirements and still providing a suitable disability access ramp. So that's an item that's in progress. In relation to the Springsure Showgrounds dining hall disability ramp, there was a meeting on site last week, again with various user groups to discuss that. So not a need to move the existing ramp and car park, but to supplement that in order to provide accessibility during the show where the existing one would be impacted, particularly in relation to the access for vehicles by Sideshow Alley during show days. So you'll see that I've provided some sort of mock-up detail in relation to the outcome of the discussions there, which we'll work through in terms of looking at implementing that solution. So so the items are in progress and certainly work towards obtaining a better outcome than what occurred as a result of the lack of consultation that occurred with these projects.
Thank you very much, Jared. Councillor Rolfe asked me to just mention, I know the report says that there was a meeting on the 7th of March with the Springsure Show Society, but she did want to highlight that there were actually a number of other groups consisting of IBM's Component Committee and the Working Force Association and other representatives that provided input into that consultation on the 7th of March, so it was a more extensive consultation with the community. Sorry, Councillor
Just lessons learned. I really need to emphasise that you understand the lessons learned out of this, the lack of community consultation. So I hope that lesson has seriously been learned. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. Any further questions for Jared?
No.
Okay.
Well, kept up to date on this one.
Councillor McIntyre.
No question. I'd like to speak to the point 2 and reword the second last line of options available to potentially move, or is it to move? And also to accommodate community requests. Maybe we should add, I'd like to remove it altogether to accommodate their requests, or add councillors to community and councillors' requests, because this has been pretty significant, as Councillor Cypher said. We've had a lot of dealings with the communities and we've had to rescope this. So I just don't want to hang the community on this. I am a part of it and I want to see some changes made. So potentially it doesn't sit well with me.
So just further to that, a further report be presented to council on options available.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like.
So through you, Madam Chair, these are preliminary at this stage. We do need to do a bit more work to finalise those options so that we're not, again, rushing off without getting an entire spread of councils and community.
And going back to the community, like that's who you should be going back to. I don't care if I never see it again, but as long as the community gets what they want for their community.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, we envisage that report coming back to the council will include the support from the community engagement that will be undertaken.
Can we also please remove available to potentially move the ramps, because Springsure, when you're not moving the ramp, you're going to add additional
Through you, Madam Chair, obviously the time of writing the report, there was still some work to be done. The meeting not occurred at Springsure to determine what the issues or the options were there. So that one's relatively straightforward. In relation to the Henny or disability ramp, that does need further investigation, and we need to see what is workable on site and what that's going to cost. So I'm comfortable with the comments that have been made. But we obviously need to still obtain some detail there in relation to that one, and rightly so, we'll of course work with the community.
And do you have a time frame? Like, is this going to drag on for another 6 months?
Certainly not, councillor Sullivan. We're doing this ASAP. We appreciate the urgency of it, and obviously there was very strong feeling in the community, particularly the Inia, in relation to that ramp, so we're certainly aware of the timeframes there.
Thank you.
Okay, there's been some changes to that resolution. Is anyone happy with the wording for section 4.2?
So Madam Chair, just to keep it broad enough to encapsulate the Spring Shore area, which still needs limited work. It's an option to provide alternative outcomes to accommodate community council requests without being specific, but to warrant search. Or, as a suggestion from Michelle, we could change it to address community concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah. To address community and council concerns.
You could, instead of alternatives, you could just say through outcomes.
To address community and council.
Yeah, right, just leave that, yeah. To address community concerns.
Alternative hours.
Delete the rest.
Yeah,
And provide.
concerns, full stop.
Concerns.
There,
Community concerns, take the councillor out here,
yeah, right.
because that reads better. Take the
Yeah, take the
councillors out as well, because that addresses
Great.
it. Remove it.
Okay, thank you. I have Councillor Matthews move and Councillor Golden-Smith as a seconder. Can I please have a show of hands for people that are for this resolution? Thank you. All in favour, carried. Right, moving on to 11.9, camping options update. I will hand over to Daniel to introduce this report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillors, again, you'll be aware of the inconsistencies across our region with camping and specifically at the showgrounds. We have provided that interim management report to the state government, and we're currently responding to them on some information requests that they're going to give to us. So Joe will have some more detail to provide for you.
Thank you, Daniel. So, councillors, you'll see within the report that we have progressed the draft interim plan of management to the Department of Natural Resources, Mines and Energy. They've come back and provided feedback and need us to do further work on that document in relation to their land management planning kit. So that's an item that still requires some effort. Similarly, they've also mentioned in the report the desire for council to develop, from my perspective anyway, a camping options strategy. So I have obtained an example from Goondiwindi Regional Council, which I think would be very suitable for adaptation to Central Highlands Regional Council's requirements, and have requested from the company that developed that a quotation for what it would take for us to do similar here at Central Highlands. I received that quote yesterday, which has come to the amount of $24,000 and $24,100 plus GST. So I'd certainly think it's something that council should consider for us to do, because of what it will do is help encapsulate the overall issue, help obviously consult with many of the caravan park owners that have concerns in relation to the way that we're operating, and give an overarching position as to how council should approach the issue throughout the region.
A couple of things. I think that's a really good start. The pricing that you're mentioning, I guess, what's the scope? Will there be extensive consultation associated with that? Because there is, I guess I'm taking from the Tourism Advisory Panel a desire to have a council to have a freedom camping policy developed in the very near future. But obviously, because tourism benefits, I guess different to every business, we need to be consulted widely around that.
Madam Chair, yes, that the part of the scope was to ensure that there was thorough consultation would be involved in the process. So again, we of course can't do that in isolation to develop such a strategy. Again, given a strong feeling from some of the caravan park operators within the region, I see that as a necessity to ensure that we're opening it up, and like you you said, making sure that it's a broader consultation, not just considering the needs and wants of those individuals and businesses, but also the wider implications from an economic benefit perspective. So part of that would be, part of the scope would be that company undertaking that on council's behalf.
Okay.
So through the chair, it's speaking in point 3, council-owned operated camping locations. If we're undertaking this work and they're going to be speaking to these operators, existing operators, should we be looking at putting this as a, extending that for future tourism to incorporate the operating of not only on council land but also private property while we're consulting? So for the likes of property just east of Emerald, that is up and running, I guess. But we've had issues or requests from other landowners and cattlemen or cattle properties in particular, where they'd like to establish a farm stay sort of thing. So should these people be discussing that with these caravan camping operators whilst they're going around?
It's private business, really, isn't it?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, I think that the strategy could provide recognition of that, similar to it providing recognition of the existing caravan park operators. But as Councillor Cypress pointed out, given it's a private concern and we're trying to, I guess, establish council's position in relation to what we do at the likes of showgrounds and or providing free camping options, then that would primarily be the focus of it. But you're correct, Councillor McIndoe, in relation to any of that consultation, consideration of council's position needs to factor in what is also happening within the market regionally and how it all meshes together.
Just through the chair, can I just, and this is just building on a little bit more about what Councillor Daniels opened with, that there is a lot of consultation with our tourism officer with this, because the TAG or the other group in the tourism, they are going to start work with the framework of December, having a strategy put together to come to council in regards to freedom camping. So this really needs to have a lot of engagement with our tourism officer. Yeah, don't work in silos is pretty much what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So through you, Madam Chair, very good point, Councillor Cypher. I have a meeting with representatives from CFTC on Thursday morning, and I'll cover off on this, and I'll also provide them with the submission that we've received from the consultancy in relation to developing the strategy, and provide them with reference to the Goondiwindi Regional Council strategy as a I guess a point of reference again to see what we're trying to achieve. But yeah, very good point.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I'm sure you have it under control, but I just need to emphasise it.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, just to add to that, I think you want to be very, very careful about there's several issues in here, and not to complicate it. The Emerald camping area, is an issue that's unresolved. There's a whole heap of other regulatory issues around that, and as you rightly point out in your report, it certainly wouldn't be, notwithstanding, I guess you'd say, the comments from other owners and operators, certainly within the region. The reality is there's some significant regulatory and I think a philosophical decision that needs to be made about whether our showgrounds is in fact an appropriate place for a caravan park, given I guess you'd say the hierarchy now, or I guess you'd say what constituted previously, a stopover at a caravan park across the broader region is different in locations, and the implication here is, I think, greater. So I would like to think that, sure, there's a bigger strategy around camping, which I think the tourism body is probably best placed to, I guess, articulate and bring forward. I think the real issue here is the potential that has been, I guess, building over the last few years around, that facility operating in some way, shape or form, and what benefit and the reason for continuing with that. and obviously the commercial aspects of that as well. So there's a couple of issues in there, I suspect, and they need to be, I guess, dealt with almost separately. So, you know, the broader camping one is a widely consulted one. I think the other one really needs a regulatory approach to it because, quite frankly, I see that coming to a head very, very sooner than later.
Yes.
So, thank you, Madam Chair.
So, yeah, in relation to the interim plan of management, that will be coming back to us next meeting then with an update.
Madam Chair, I can't guarantee that that will be the case given the amount of additional work that needs to occur, so it might be a longer time frame than that. I'll need to consider that along with my own, I guess, time frames within council. So given what's required in order to update or further develop that interim plan and consolidate the requirements of the department and their land management planning kit needs. Yeah, I need to consider what level of work is required and how that's best resourced. So I may need to outsource that as an example to try and get it done as soon as possible given other works requirements within my section.
Yeah, sure. And I was really, I guess the thing is where, I mean, obviously tourism occurs all year, but the numbers will start increasing quite soon. So it'd be interesting, I guess, to know whether, if we don't have it signed off, whether you're going to start putting in place what I guess we intend to do for the interim plan, the changes that we would intend to occur.
So, Madam Chair, the position that we're taking at this point in time is similar to what Mr Mayor alluded to in terms of some of the compliance and regulatory type issues and concern within the community from local caravan park operators, is that we are strictly operating that facility as overflow as much as possible at the moment. So we're directing as much as possible through the Tourist Information Centre anyone that goes there or goes directly to the showgrounds to try and obtain a site at existing operators first and foremost. So that's the basis on which I've asked for it to be operated, to ensure that we're hopefully alleviating or addressing some of that criticism that we have received with simply taking anyone that turns up.
Okay, great. And Claudia, thank you very much. Any further questions, councillors? The resolution regarding receiving the report and noting the other actions is in front of us. May I please have a mover, Councillor Cypher, and seconder, Councillor McIndoe. Can I please have a show of hands for the report? Thank you. All in favour, the resolution is carried. Thank you very much, Jared. So moving on, the 11.10 Parks People Play Strategy, I will hand over to Jamie to introduce this report.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Without time constrictions, councillors, this report is an update report to let you know where we're up to. Hoping just to receive that information report as quickly as possible. Jared can hopefully provide a verbal update, as we've stated in our last sentence of the last paragraph there, on where it is particularly up to, but we are limited as a consultant at this stage. So, Jared, if you can help us out in 60 seconds.
I think you've covered it, Daniel, unless there's any questions.
No, that's fine. I'll take the report as read then. Questions? I have, so the resolution's there in front of us to receive the report. Councillor McIndoe, you're moving. May I have a second, please? Councillor Brindlecombe, show of hands for in favour, thank you. Councillor McIndoe, are you voting? So can I please have a show of hands all in favour, please? Thank you. Carried, thank you. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you.
Now, we might just hold over the Ranger Services report until the end of the meeting, if you don't mind. And we'll just quickly move on to the departmental updates, which will have to be, we have 10 minutes left within our time, so move on to the departmental updates and we'll go back to range services report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor, so departmental update, not to devalue all the great work that's been pulled together for this report. I won't go through it in detail. That could be unproductive, but we'll no doubt capital works practical completion at 67.5% for this month. That is substantial progress against delivery on those, with obviously a lot to happen in the next 3 months. But happy to take any questions if I can answer them now, or take them on notice for the 2031 updates we have for the department.
Take silence as no questions.
I've got lots and lots, but I'm really worried about the time.
Okay.
Relocation of dump point. Can we speak to that on page 159? Or do you want to?
Yeah, we may need to ask Jared to come down and speak to specific.
It's just in regards to some of the scope of works. Is some of my questions.
Okay.
And call me up, Madam Chair, if you,
Yeah, okay.
because relocated, the dump point's been relocated from halfway between Rubyvale, from what I'm reading here, and this is the first of my knowledge.
Yes.
You may, I haven't heard of anything, and I'm on a CRG group out there that is very concerned with this, where the location is. We've obviously undergone some form of consultation out there with some stakeholders, and I read this and it's the first. So that raises concerns for me. I just want to note that, not so much a question, but we can follow it up, Madam Chair, if you wish to offline, unless others have got some.
Yeah, I've got some major concerns pretty much around the same thing, and I think it needs to be discussed, because I've received, I asked for an update on when it was going to be located. This is only last week, I believe, to find out that it was going at the Roy Day Park, and the correspondence, very upset correspondence from the Progress Association at Rubyvale. So my question is, where was the consultation in that again? And I think that is a huge problem. So I'd like to know, I want that answered, sorry, I'm brushing that up.
No, that's.
Jared, do you have any answers for that at this stage? Or?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. The initial proposed site between Sapphire and Rubyvale was being considered with in consultation with the Lands Department, so we hadn't gone as far as consulting with the community at that point, given it required the necessary approvals. Obviously and unfortunately, those approvals were not forthcoming, so we weren't able to locate it at that site to get it out of the respective villages. As a consequence, then my coordinator looked at the options to put it somewhere else, Roy Day Park being an option that he considered, and had a discussion with some of the user groups there in relation to that option, but clearly he has not gone further from a CRG or a more broad community perspective in terms of consultation. So I'm certainly happy to take your advice in relation to what our steps should be as far as consultation then goes.
So consultation, I would have imagined the first step of consultation would have been to the park owners, the caravan park owners out there, would have been just a very obvious group to connect with, and there'd been a lot of consultation done over a lot of years about going near the transfer station, and if that couldn't happen, then you did need to go back out and consult with the community. I just can't believe, and I know I say it all the time, that I don't know whether it's the one person that just doesn't consult with the community or whether it's the whole damn department, but it needs to happen.
Thank you very much, Councillor Slyke. I think.
So can we stop the dump point going in there and consult with the community, or has it just gone in there now and Vicky's?
No, through you, Madam Chair, certainly nothing has physically happened on site yet, so it's been an item that's been considered in relation to that site. I take your point on board in relation to further consultation with the caravan park owners. I guess from my perspective, it was a a situation of knowing that the tourist season's coming up rapidly. We've had obviously numerous complaints in relation to the existing location, so we're trying to expedite that as soon as possible. But there's nothing preventing us from putting things on hold at this point in time and ensuring that we go back and readdress that consultation requirement. So again, happy to take those comments on board.
Yeah, but certainly, I think that there certainly needs to be a lot of communication and consultation about this, because it's widely understood in the community that it's going to go at the transfer station there. So to do something different, really, the community needs to have an opportunity to provide input into that. So thanks, Jared, for that. Questions? Any further questions?
Look, I do have lots, and I don't know how to handle them from here. I will go direct to Jared via some recording and get some feedback. But I just wish to focus on page 162 now under grants projects, under the Emerald Town entrance beautification. Some 12 months ago, and I'll go quick, some 12 months ago we decided on this project. This is the first literature I've seen that we've received prior to something being done. So I am a little bit wavered by the way that this whole process on these two projects have been undertaken, and I've certainly viewed that prior. But now I see here that we're going to be excavating and spending quite considerable time and money on excavating the batters of the approach from the eastern side of Vince Lester Bridge to a 1-in-4 batter. To make it landscaping easier and do a little bit there to the beautification, when I believe that we could be elevating a further project that will see all that undertaken under a different scope of works. I'm not sure whether I can speak to that at this stage, but I don't know whether this is doing what we discussed 12 months ago in beautifying the entrance to our townships. I'd like to see a hold on it. I'd like to open it up to others on the floor, but I'm not happy with the quality of the outcomes for the money that we're spending in these areas. I'll leave it at that due to time frames.
Through you, Madam Chair, duly noted, and we'll make some arrangements to talk to the councils about that. In terms of holding these projects up, they are working on two projects due by the middle of this year, so I dare say we might be able to put a stop on these projects, but I can be corrected if we can talk to the department and see if there's some exception.
No, I was told that the town clock wasn't being able to be stopped either, that it was underway, but it's still not finished. I don't, like, what can be stopped, what can be bettered, what can be done. Because I cannot see why we would spend money on something that may be
knocked down again.
But I do applaud you for at least advising what's happening in advance. It's the first time on both these projects that we've had some understanding of what's going on.
Okay, noted. Can we please have a meeting regarding that? Thank you very much. Any further questions, councillors? No, I'll take that silence. There's no further questions. Daniel, do you have anything more to add?
I did in terms of that time constraint today.
Okay. Right. Thank you very much. Can I please have a mover or and a seconder to receive the Communities Department report? Councillor Cobbins-Smith and seconder was Councillor Brimmer. Show of hands in favour, thank you. All in favour, thank you. Great. Moving on to carried, sorry, thank you. Moving on to the Customer and Commercial Services Department report. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'll hand straight over to the Manager of Customer Service Department.
Good morning, everyone. Through the Chair, I'll, in the essence of time, we'll take the report or the update as read. I just wanted to highlight a couple of points. The customer satisfaction survey running 1st of February to the 28th have been extended. This is the one that's collating responses through our branches for another month just to collect some more responses. We only got 36 for the month. we are off fast over 500 people. So we just want to extend that for a month to try and capture some more responses. The community consultation draft procedure workshop was held with area office coordinators. A second workshop is planned on the 19th, and we've extended an invitation to Councillor Daniels to attend that, just to ensure that we've got, we're on the right track with the amendments we've made to the community consultation procedure, and that we take on board any other councillors' feedback as part of that workshop. So that's just around the draft.
So do you want individual councillors to give you direct feedback as well? I know we have given Megan some feedback.
No, just the Megan. So we're just, Megan will attend and just provide councillor feedback.
Great, yeah, thank you very much for that. Any questions for Rebecca? Thank you very much.
If I may, just through the chair, just to advise councillors that General Manager of Communities and myself have met with the CEO also in regards to and provided some feedback from councillors in regards to the Capella consultation. So we'll also take those comments back on board in regards to considering how we can improve the consultation process for councillors in regards to being more prepared to assist councillors, but also providing information. We know that area office coordinators, for example, have a lot of local information in regards to what's going on within the regions and how they can play more of a proactive role in their positions within those communities as well. So just to advise councillors that we're looking at this and working to improve that process on behalf of councillors.
Great, thank you very much, Michelle. There's a resolution in front of us to receive the Customer and Commercial Services Departmental update. Please have a move. Thank you, Councillor Syfer. Councillor Godwin-Smith was the seconder. Show of hands for the resolution. Thank you. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. So we just quickly move through to the community consultation meeting minutes, and they've all been included in there. We'll do an individual resolution per community. Is there any? Sorry, I'll take it. I'll hand over to Daniel to introduce this report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll hand over to General Manager of Customer and Commercial Services.
Thank you.
Sorry,
much to speak to, other than to amend the actions from the consultations have been brought forward within the reports for councillors to be aware of. The customer CRMs are detailed there as well. You do have the action sheets in regards to the actions. Please bear in mind they're only ever at a point in time when they're compiled to bring forward, but the work progressed in regards to concluding those matters. There's nothing specific to talk to, I don't think, in any of the consultation minutes, and unless councillors have some questions, we could move forward with the process to just receive them.
Just a quick question, really, Michelle, about bringing the actions back to council. What's the time frame? Is there I guess, can we see this action report maybe quarterly or 6 monthly about where those actions are up to?
If I could, through the chair, the new process that we've adopted is that we send monthly updates through the Have Your Say. So if there's opportunity to share that action sheet at the same time with the council group as an update, but we are committed to closing the loop with the community. And so these action sheets will go up every single month. They'll be updated by the area office coordinators monthly and go out through the Have Your Say portal.
Okay, great.
I noticed a lot of these were raised through the chair, so we were raised at CRG levels prior to the consultations, particularly the eastern side, which is a terrific thing. And seeing the CRMs attached, what I'd be suggesting is if we can get access to those updated CRMs prior to quarterly CRG meetings, to give an update back to the community that way as well.
That's what.
Yeah, certainly they'll be available for anyone to download on that public facing forum. So in preparation, I would suggest that the community engagement officers that go along to those CRGs that are able to sort of print off copies of those and take them along with them so that they've got that information at the ready.
Could you email a link for us tech-savvy people to?
Of course.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Include me.
Great. So
I'll move.
so there's a resolution in front of us for the Behinia community consultation. So Councillor McIntyre was a mover, Councillor Godwin-Smith is seconded. May I show of hands for the Councillor Hayes? All in favour? No, you're right. For Virginia, so moving on to the Carrie. Moving on to Dingo, community consultation. Any questions regarding that? May I please have a mover, Councillor Brindlecombe, a seconder, Councillor Sypher. A show of hands, please, for the resolution. All in favour, carried. Thank you. The community consultation meeting for Jeringa is in front of us. Any questions? No. Councillor Godwin-Smith was the mover, thank you, and I think Councillor McIntyre was the seconder there. May I please have a show of hands for the report? Thank you. All in favour, carried. Thank you. So, moving on to the community consultation minutes. Any specific questions? No. No. Please have a mover. Thank you, Councillor Sypher. Seconder, Councillor Godwin-Smith. May I please have a show of hands for the resolution? So all in favour there, it's carried. Thank you very much. Bluff community consultation. Any specific questions? No. Sypher is the mover. Councillor Secretary. Councillor Can I please have a show of hands for the resolution? Show of hands, please. Thank you. All in favour, that's carried. Thank you. So the colour community consultation, is there any specific questions, Jane? Okay. So Councillor Sypher moved, and a seconder, please. Councillor Godwin-Smith. A show of hands for the resolution. Thank you. It's all in favour, carried. Thank you very much. Ranger Services overview. Thank you very much, Ranger Services, for hanging about. Thank you very much, Vic and Michelle, for the customer service report.
Madam Chair, I'll do a really quick introduction to our organising managers. Brett Keys is here. Susie seems like she's hiding at the back there. She told us to do so. Our regular Monday opportunity to provide an update on the teams. Brett's obviously going to be able to introduce the new trainees. So you all get a quick snapshot of what's happening there within 7.5 minutes.
That's the record, eh? Morning, everyone. Madam Chair. As was mentioned, I'm here to present an introduction to the new trainees to Ranger Services and a quick snapshot overview of Ranger Services and where we've been and what we're doing and what we're looking at in the future. Very quick snapshot. Don't want to hold you up. They're all very busy. So as was provided, PowerPoint was sent out to you all for you to review and have a look at for where we're at, to give you an idea so we can keep this rolling. So, Ranger Services 2019, here we are. Went the wrong way, no I didn't. Meet the team. Myself, Jamie Bullivant, she's still on maternity leave, but will be returning in the next couple of weeks, so we're looking forward to that, to see how she goes with the new team and the environment. Recent photo of us all at Blue Day. Susan up the back there, she's present today. If you have any questions with regard to the rural land aspect of what's been going on, what we've been doing. And our new trainees, we have Elena to my immediate left and Erin on the far end. Both were successful applicants for the traineeships that we have running this year, and from everything that I've seen of them at the start, very promising. Both are very apt at what they're doing and show excellent potential. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can bring to the team and where they can go.
Was it a coincidence you put the mix of puppy and kitten?
I did actually think about that till the end, but yeah, I brought the animation in because they're the pups and the kittens at the moment. So there we go, without any disrespect, obviously. What we've been up to of late, the photos that are up there, both of Susan, the top one of her doing some chainsawing was late last year, is that right, Susan? Some prickly acacia or whatever it was out. And the boat was taken last week on the Nagoa we were able to get the boat back up and running and get some spraying happening back up and down the river. So pest management, we spraying along the Capricorn Highway and throughout CHRC, taking in the gem fields. Weather's a really big contributing factor at the moment. It inhibits our ability to be able to undertake pest management with weed spraying. It's too hot, too dry, we get no application of chemical onto the ground or the plant itself. It makes it very difficult. So yeah, we'd love to see some rain so we can see what's coming up. We're spraying, obviously going through the gem fields. We had a big spray day a couple of weeks ago targeting bellyache, Salvinia and willows and prickly acacia out there, working in collaboration with DAF and Fern. It was quite a successful day. The Salvinia we at the Buddies Dam came through as a CRM and we acted on that within 2 days. We were already in the process of going out there to tackle a lot of the pest weeds that are out there, and we acted on that within 2 days of receiving that report, but we were already in the process of getting it done.
Actually, that report went through quite a few months ago when it wasn't done, so it was a second report.
It was the second one, was it? Sorry. Again, focus efforts on the Nagoa, the Hymen acne infestation, as you can see, 27 cases was done between 2017 and present. Again, the boat was a big issue. We had motor issues and other licensing concerns around that, which made it very difficult to get back out. And we're happy to say we got the boat up and running, and we sorted all our problems out. Just a couple of little teething problems getting back on the river. So we're trying to focus on at least 1 day a week on the Nagoa, weather permitting and staffing constraints.
Brett, may I ask what part of the river are you focusing on now?
We travelled to the top weir and back, and yeah, taken everything that we can in that space. Susan will be able to give a much more accurate recollection of where they've been spraying, because her and Michelle are the ones that have been going out along with the girls as well, since they turned up. So, but yeah, to the top weir and back, isn't that right? So,
yeah, so Councillor Daniels, we've done between the bottom ridge here. We've gone all the way down to the bottom weir, to the 2 bottom weirs. We've sprayed over whatever we found down there. We have gone now back up. We've also did on the same day to the top weir, which is a bit tricky because the water is not as much, so there's a few logs and stuff like that we've got to get over. There is a little bit for you to go in there because of load restraints, getting over the logs and stuff like that. So we got that done, and then we went and started spraying from the top weir up. So yeah, we haven't gone too far. A lot of our patches have reduced, but we've worked out anything that is attached to the ground, like to the banks, is very, very hard to spray. Like we can spray it, but it doesn't kill as easy as what the stuff that is floating or done on trees, debris. So we've only got down a little alleyways, I suppose, and that's where our biggest hurdle is there. We've just found, like we knew about the patch, it's reduced, but there's still a lot of it. So we've got 2 boats on the water. We've got that big boat, and then we've got a little boat as well. So we're sort of working together.
So yeah, that's where we're at with our pest management. Moving on to animal management, we're up to 3,286 active registered dogs, which we're still trying to progress further with that. We've had 4 stock impoundments in the last about 8 months. One of those resulted in animals being removed from the impoundment without authority and resulted in police inquiries and infringements being issued to the person that removed those animals. 47 infringements in the last 6 months, 12 animal permits issued, and flying fox roost modifications at Doringa and installation of deterrents at the Botanic Gardens. We undertook the modification at Doringa last week. Evidence suggests that it's been successful. Prior to the roost modification, the animals had actually moved, so it made it extremely easy for us to get in and do the tree modifications. It's been quite drastic on a couple of trees, but because of the damage that had occurred because of the animals being in there, we saw it was necessary to trim those trees right back. I expect that we'll see a benefit out of that for the next 12 to 18 months. Yeah, the animal will come back, but I don't think they'll come back at the numbers. That was quite successful. Our rural land activities, stock route travel permits, we've issued 38 with 34,000 plus stock moving. Grazing permits, 31 issued with 2,800 stock and horses. Facility upgrades at Gordonstone Water Facility and Abor Dam, and then fencing at 5 Mile Reserve and Springshaw Reserve. Gordonstone's been completed, Abor's in the pipeworks. And we have our recommencement of the Shire Rural Land, we had the Rural Land Officers meeting in Long Ranch that Susan and Michael Clark went out to give us a little bit more information that we might be able to present at the upcoming Rural Lands meeting at the end of the month. Rural Lands meeting in Emerald at the end of the month. Any questions there?
No, thank you.
Okay, what's coming up as far as community events that we're attending? We recently did Clean Up Australia Day. Just finished at the Cherrick Future Food and Fibre. That was quite informative. If anyone got down there, it was excellent. I was pretty happy with the stall that we managed to get up. We got good feedback from attendees. I was quite happy with that. We got the Rural Land meeting on the 29th. Getting an agenda done up. I've had responses back from all of our attendees as far as the state departments and other departments that are showing up. So I'll have an agenda done up for that for the actual day itself. It's looking quite good. Emails went out to all the landholders on Monday from our end, and as far as Cherrick, I haven't heard back from them yet, but I'll reach out to them this week to see how they're going. We have a Ruby Vale, a Volunteer Appreciation Day. Who are we? We'll be attending that, and then we have the Emerald Show and Agro coming up, and finishing up with Nago in November at the end of the year. And that's it. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
I'd like to welcome the new trainee. It's extremely exciting. I hope it's exciting for you, but look, you know, it's a big part of our team and a big part of our community, what you guys do. So live the enthusiasm, take the dream and take it as long as you can. So I wish you all the best and look forward to seeing more of this.
That's great, thank you. There's a resolution in front of us to receive the report from the Ranger Services team. May I please have a mover? Councillor Cypher and second Councillor Godwin Smith. A show of hands in favour, thank you. A show of hands in favour, thank you. Thank you. It's all in favour and carried, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry that you have to wait to provide that presentation.
There's a cup of tea and a biscuit out there. It's only a dry say, but more than welcome to join us.
Thank you.
And if we had more time, I would have given the opportunity to speak. And
Yeah, and I know.
My apologies for being much.
You're just have to come back. That's the short.
Thank you. Meeting closed. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much.
nature of the stuff that when the other fellows are talking, everybody huddles up to these 4 seats, and when the governance comes on, everybody goes back to the room. Yes. Don't read too much into it.
We're live.
So, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, Chris, yeah.
Welcome to Leadership and Governance Standing Committee. We are just short. Councillor Brimble will be back in the room shortly. And we do have an apology received from Councillor Bell for this meeting today. Do we need to? I don't need to move that because that's already been.
I think you might have to.
Move council needs to see Councillor Cypher that no apology be acceptable. Thank you.
Hold the biscuit up, Charlie.
Sorry, ma'am.
I said hold the biscuit up, Charlie.
Okay. So, are there any leaves of absence needed in the future? No, thank you. So we go on to the confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 10th of February. Just have a quick look at those, a very short meeting. Somebody move that those please. Councillor Slythe, Secretary, Councillor Nixon, all in favour? Thank you. Any business arising out of those minutes? It was a very short meeting. So, review of your outstanding meeting actions. And Rod, you might be able to, can you update us on any of those?
No, I can't, Madam Chair, there's just 2 items in there, and then GM community, the right answers to the first one, about Smart Cities presentation.
Daniel, in our outstanding meeting actions, there's an item here about smarts. Do you want to come and look at it?
Contacting CQ Unio for Smart Cities.
Smart Cities.
So councillors, we're in the process now of finalising the smart community framework, which engagement will happen and is scheduled for late in April. So the CQ University will be involved in that process as a targeted engagement. So they'll be from a sector position, they'll be contributing to that.
Yeah, excellent, because this has been sitting for a while. It was something that Councillor Bell raised with us, and so it'll be good that there will be some action on that in the next little while. Thanks, Dan. And the other one is draft management policy.
GM of infrastructure and utility. So I don't know if that's going that way.
Yeah. So we might ask that we ask the next meeting. Thanks.
But the broad news is Mike can't hear it. Sorry. I think it is already on. It's on, but it's not.
Did I turn mine off?
No, yours wasn't on.
I'll just chase that issue up on the drought management policy. I'm not sure what the GM of infrastructure and services has done towards that. Without him in the room, I can't give you a straight answer, so we'll follow up on that one.
Yeah, thank you. Upcoming agenda items. They're fairly standard now, aren't they? The agenda items are the reviews of
resolutions and the policy update, which is ongoing as well, I believe. Yeah. So, any petitions?
No petitions. No.
And any material personal interest, conflict of interest, personal gifts and benefits? I don't know how to do this. Very good. So we're moving right along to corporate services and into, if Chris can come down. And if you lead off on the board report.
Madam Chair, as per the report, this is part of the ongoing review of Council's policies. In this particular case, of fraud and corruption policy and procedure. I'll hand over to Acting Manager of Government, Chris Yosen, to present his report.
Thanks, Rod. Councillors, as Rod was saying, it's part of our ongoing review of our integrity suite of policies and procedures. It was timely insofar as we've had a little bit of input in recent times from the CCC, the Queensland Audit Office, the Queensland Ombudsman about our policy structure and our framework. We've been reviewing all of our integrity policies. There's only a couple to go. This one here today, so it was first adopted 2 years ago, or was last adopted 2 years ago, back in November 2016. When it was adopted, there was several layers to it. There's a policy, there's procedures, there's 3 individual procedures, there's a framework, there's also a sort of documents that support it all. It becomes fairly cumbersome, although most of them are internal working documents that don't really come to the council. They're more like machinery on it, I guess. However, when we were going through doing a bit of a review of it, we thought it could be simplified by absorbing a few of those into the one document, which we've done in this proposed structure here. The policy itself is fairly straightforward, as evident to expect in a fraud and corruption policy. The meat of it is already in the plan and the associated procedure. The procedures don't need to be adopted by council, but because of the sensitivities of it, and because it goes into the very nature of how to do fraud and corruption, I'll put them up here for everybody's information in the first instance. I don't propose to go through all that detail unless anybody has any particular questions, but I'd like to take the opportunity to point out a few slight changes since the report's been produced. The policy on page 12 of 54 has definitions for corruption and fraud. The definitions of corruption has changed. There's been amendments to the CCC legislation as recently as 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they revised the definition of corruption. So what we're proposing to insert there, in addition to what the current text is a clause to the effect that a fuller definition of corruption is provided in the CCC Act of 2001, section 15. And likewise, the fraud definition comes out of the Queensland Criminal Code. It's also been amended since our policy was first adopted. So we're just proposing a few extra words there to explain that a fuller description is available in section 408C of the Queensland Criminal Code. That's just a bit of a housekeeping thing. It doesn't materially change the document at all. Likewise, in the Fraud and Corruption Control Plan, we're proposing again amendments to those definitions as per what I just mentioned a moment ago. One of the requirements of the Australian standards is that there be a nominated Fraud and Corruption Control Officer. Ordinarily, that's not the CEO, or by default it largely becomes part of his core function anyway. But as far as from an operational point of view, they suggest that an officer be allocated the responsibility of Fraud and Corruption Control Officer. This policy gives that position to the Manager of Governance, which I believe has been doing it previously, but now it's actually expressly stated as such. So that just covers off on some of the Australian standard requirements. There's also a slight change in the page 6 of 15. It talks of, so if you go down to clause D, protection of employees reporting suspected fraud. Again, a minor change. It says the plan is to be read in conjunction with the public interest disclosure policy, which protects employees' rights when they report suspected fraud and corruption. Just want to change that report suspected fraud and corruption to the words make any disclosure, because the public interest disclosure policy relates to a lot more things than just outright fraud and corruption. So to avoid any ambiguity, sort of another housekeeping issue. I don't think there's anything I need to add further at this stage, but I'm happy to take any questions on any component or aspect of the policy documentation. if necessary.
I just make a comment through the chair that if it should have been highlighted, or I felt I couldn't find where it had changed. You know, it hadn't been highlighted or anything, and I kind of looked through and thought I couldn't see any changes. So you've explained that there are, but they just weren't highlighted in this.
Yeah, I'll take the point, Councillor Nixon. The policy really is just those definitions. The changes are really in the procedure, where there was 3 or 4 independent procedures before now they've been amalgamated into one. There's been a lot of duplication removed. So highlighting those is significantly a new procedure, but it's a lot more streamlined than the previous 3. I'll take the point about highlighting the changes to the policy.
Yeah, I just
makes it
I thought,
difficult.
well, what's different? So I suppose I didn't know it by heart and didn't look too closely, but yeah, thank you.
One of the, I suppose I want to make one further comment that one of the requirements in the procedures now is that there has to be more formalised reporting of fraud and corruption. We've, in the governance team, has now developed a database, if you like, that records all such incidents. Anything referred to the Queensland Audit Office, the Queensland Ombudsman's Office, or the CCC is recorded, as is the status of it at any given time, and the results of any subsequent inquiry. So that will be submitted in some form through the Audit Committee, through the Council at some stage. It'll probably be a very generic sort of document for obvious reasons, but there will be some reporting on it, probably a quarterly or bi-annual basis.
So, Chris, could I just suggest that I think it's on page 10, that local governments often had ad hoc reporting arrangements that did not support a centralised register of all such issues. However, I believe that we've had quite good reporting through our audit committee. Would that be correct, Mayor?
Yeah, Councillor Roy, that was from the Queensland Audit Office. They're making just a generic comment about Queensland local government in general, where sometimes financial reporting might be the responsibility of the Chief Financial Officer or the Chief Accountant. Fraud and corruption matters might relate to report to the CCC, so it might be done more by the governance area, and they weren't talking. So at no stage could the CCC or another external agency come in and see what's the current state of play with all reports from external agencies. They may have to go and talk to 2 or 3 different officers to actually get a full picture. But you're right, the reporting in this particular council through the audit committee, from what I've seen, is much more extensive than what I've seen in other councils.
Yes, okay. So that was, and in that paragraph, you know, you've got the QAO, the CCC, the local government, the police service. I mean, and you know, how much regulation is going to be put on us, and is this going to increase over the next little while through?
Well, it won't increase as a result of this. This will just capture all our existing processes into one. For instance, if there's a break and enter at a depot, that might be reported by the depot staff to the police, okay, so but we don't necessarily learn about it. So we want to be able to know at any given stage what's out there to a third party, through a reporting agency. So it's just a data collection thing, if you like.
Yeah, sure. So it's actually so that it does, this policy actually does cover all of those.
Well,
the broader spectrum of
the procedures that we're putting behind it, as I talked about that template, it's going to have any reporting to any external agency.
Yep. So
that obviously needs a bit of work on the internal process to make that happen, but we need the framework there in the first instance.
Any other comments, please? So, thanks, Chris. So that we adopt the CHRC 0012 Fraud and Corruption Control Policy and the Fraud and Corruption Control Plan, and further, we note the fraud risk asset investigation, monitoring, evaluation and reporting procedure that will be instrumental in the application. Something moved with that, Councillor Brendlecombe, seconder. Second, Councillor Piper. All those in favour? Thank you. Another policy down. So we now go on to HR Leaders Forum.
First Madam Chair, Sheree Chant and Tanya Rouse had the opportunity to attend the HR Leaders Forum 2019 in Sydney recently. They report to the committee for information. As you hear, they learned down there. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
I'll start. So, this is the same forum that I attended with Jason Bradshaw last year. We got a lot out of that forum, and obviously that's why we decided we'd go again this year. So this year, Sheree came along, as she's studying her HR IA certification. We got a big great opportunity for Sheree to attend as well. So seeing I wrote the report last year, Sheree wrote the report this year. So Sheree's going to do a quick rundown, and I'll just back her up this time.
So there's heaps of information in the report, so I'm not sure that there's too much I need to probably touch on today, but I guess the key themes of this year's forum, it was interesting to see how much they were consistent with last year's key themes. I think Tanya said not a lot had changed, which was quite ironic given how much is changing in the space. It seems like everything's moving pretty fast. I guess the forum sort of centred around reaction to global forces, the talent scarcity, purpose and the importance of purpose, employee engagement and culture. They were the main takeaways for me. It was quite interesting to see how many different organisations from across the world, basically, and in a number of different forums and industries were going through exactly the same things that council are going through. I think that validated what we are doing and where we're on the right track and where we probably have some really good foundations and frameworks in place. We just really need to tweak those and keep up and stay, I guess, proactive rather than reactive to the forces around us. The first speaker that I've spoken about there was from MasterCard. He's the Chief HR Officer, in America based. And his talk was a lot about the transformation, I guess, of the people journey and how rapidly things are changing. And he provided 2 truths and 1 lie. And I think if you have a look at those truths, they're pretty crazy to think of the figures that by 2040 the average working life could extend to 80 years. I mean, that's just, it blows my mind, and we're all quite shocked in the audience. I'm sure you are as well. But and number 2, the transformation is inevitable and action is required. I think council's very aware of the pace at which change is affecting us, and we're already investing time and effort in providing employees with tools to respond to both unchosen and chosen change. So we're ahead of the game a little bit there. I thought some of the things they were talking about, we were already ahead in that regard, and certainly our employees have had really good opportunities through the sessions that have been facilitated by Sea Change. And the lie being people matter less. Ultimately, people are going to be required, the human skills are going to be more relevant than ever as automation takes over. So that was really interesting to look at and really let that sink in, and how we can go about, I guess, recruiting and retaining those uniquely human skills that are going to see us get that competitive advantage. Panel 1 was headed up by SEEK, Rio Tinto and Downer. They talked a lot about the shift in the labour market from short-term to casual work, the increase in remote knowledge workers due to flexibility and mobility, and education shifting from lifelong to lifelong and employee-led. It was really interesting to hear Rio Tinto's story about how automation had impacted their workplace and what they had done to really retrain to retain their staff. Rather than decrease the size of their workforce, they embarked on a specific strategic journey to retrain, upskill and develop those staff, and now they've managed to maintain that collective intellectual knowledge. They talked about shifting some of their workers out of fly-in, fly-out situations to a hub where they man and basically run the operations for the autonomous vehicles. So that's improved their employee engagement and morale. Those staff have really had an opportunity that they would not have had otherwise. Sorry, I might just skip ahead a little bit. There were some some interesting facts around the average age of the Australian workforce now being 38.7 years old, which is bang on for me, and about the predictions of the numbers of millennials in the workforce, and just what that means to us if by 2020 50% of our workforce is millennials and they completely have a different set of outlooks as some of the other generations in our workforce. How are we going to look at retaining those staff and really making them as productive as they can be, enjoying their workplace experience? Talked a little bit about purpose, but it really was the buzzword over the 2 days. I've just put a bit of information there about how we think it will link directly to our strategies and providing us a framework for consistent decision making. It's certainly been incorporated into the people plan and the attraction and retention strategy. We really need to understand what is our purpose and why are we doing what we do to make sure that we're aligned to that. The talk from GM Holden was really, really good. I thought that Matthew, the HR director of GM Holden, spoke really with his heart on his sleeve. He was all about communication, honesty and communication, and how that's really transforming their business. What was clear when he was speaking is how much he understood the unique levers in his business, all the different arms of his business, and how he was therefore able to really understand their needs and requirements, and I guess go about informing, decision making in all areas of the business. There was an analogy that was used a couple of times that Tanya and I really liked. So the old analogy linking bad behaviour and a toxic culture being likened to letting a red sock into a load of whites, and how if people aren't held accountable for their bad behaviour, just like the red sock, they're going to stain the rest of the organisation. And that's something that everyone seems to be nodding their head in agreement with around the room. So really trying to understand what the HR's role in distinguishing that toxic behaviour, and how HR can work with business leaders and managers to train and help them really support a transforming a culture that doesn't support those toxic behaviours. And in doing so, really, I guess the important message they were saying is, in transforming a culture, what are the elements of the culture we're fiercely trying to protect? While there's things at council that we're trying to transform, there are a lot of good things going on here as well. So it's understanding that we don't need to throw everything out to improve things. It's holding on to those things that we fiercely want to protect, and then just looking at what else we can bring in to support that.
So, I'll let you talk. Okay, so this was day 2, I believe. Nearly there. So there was a good presentation there about change makers, how HR innovators are driving cultural change. And as you know, we've just had our staff survey, and out of that there was rewards and recognition was one of our key topics that we needed to work on. And it was great to listen to the keynote speaker on this one, because that's exactly what they're talking about, employee engagement. And there's a picture there in the report on the engagement bridge, and how all of the different things all link together. The speaker here was from Reward Gateway. They were really engaging for us, and I think in the break we ducked into their stand and got a few books, and since Sherry has actually contacted them, and we'll getting some more information, do a little webinar, etc., just on the Reward Gateway and what it might be able to bring to the organisation around reward and recognition. And we'll take that back to our SAP teams and our, so that should be really exciting. So it's always good to get something out of these to bring back and see if we can actually implement. What else have we got without boring everyone? This is the last part. So the last panel was about the state of competition. And how there's a lot of talent scarcity across all trades, across the whole realm of careers. So this was a panel. They had the HR director from SEEK, they had the executive general manager from NRMA. So they had some great speakers, and it was really interesting to listen to their stories and how they have got their perspective on what's affecting that talent scarcity. So obviously globalisation, automation, a demographic shift, and the increase in the temporary labour models. That was a key theme too across the few days that we were there, around this temporary labour market and the casual labour market that's affecting across the board. So the messages were consistent for us, we thought, from all the different speakers over the days, where purpose is really important, to make sure that we have a purpose for everything that we're doing and to make sure we communicate that with our staff. So we're the typical HR geeks. We loved it. We had a great time. It was really interesting, and it's always a good conference to go to, because there's so many high-profile speakers there, and they really do talk about the big hitting stuff. They don't try and get it too high level, so they're right in the operations and working on their strategies to make sure that they do bigger and better things. But for me, the Holden presentation was awesome. He was really, really down to earth. He just said it how it was, that they were in a terrible, terrible state, and how he's working through. They're not there yet, but hopefully, he said next year he'll come back and be able to tell everyone where they're up to and how great everything is. Yeah, really good conference. I'm really glad that we were able to go, so thank you for allowing us to do that. Has anyone got any questions?
Just a comment through the chair. You're obviously very passionate about it, so you think you can actually take some of that and use it in your life here?
Absolutely, yeah. So as we become more strategic and we start writing the people plan and the attraction and retention, there was a lot of on attraction and retention actually, so that will really help us as well. The reward gateway is going to, I think we're pretty keen to get that off the ground as well, so that, yeah, it's really good to be able to bring things back and be able to actually use them instead of just sitting and listening and not being able to implement. So yeah, really good.
Very good.
Yeah.
It's great that you could do it.
So can you just, on the age by 2040 of being 80-year-old, no, it's just, I'm not going to hold you down to this. When was there any talk about when they might start seeing older people still in the workforce? You know, because when you look at our workforce and our ages, so when do they think it might start to change back to maybe older people still in the workforce, and that, or doesn't it happen like that?
No, I think from what I gathered, that was just one speaker that was throwing out some statistics and saying that, you know, the average age, the top age of people working will be 80. I think there was more of a focus though on that millennials and how we're going to engage with the millennials as they come through. So they didn't talk a lot about the ageing workforce, although that's an impact. They were more focused on Kaltura, they were there last year as well. They're a video producing, and they, I guess a lot of those statistics were on how that video is going to be the way to communicate with the millennials into the next 10 years. We're going to have to get right into that. And even induction, all online, they had a great system. It was really exciting to see that, but it was really expensive. Yeah. But you know, so that's probably more of the focus. They weren't really saying, and because they were focusing on automation and how we're getting more technical, and they were talking about the learning and development. And I guess we're already starting to do that, trying to help our ageing workforce with the technology and things as well. So it was good to hear that we're actually doing things that other people are doing as well. And so we're not that far behind. Yeah.
I think MasterCard was really trying to shock us all awake
Yeah,
day one
that
with
was
that
the first
briefing, because it was kind of discounted a couple of times after the fact that maybe it was more to emphasise if this is the spectrum of the multi-generations in the workforce, what are we doing at all the different gaps to make sure everyone is working cohesively towards the same goal, because we all sort of went, oh, hell. But yeah, it wasn't, yeah, I think it was just a shock us all.
Yeah, it was a statement more than anything.
It's going to be interesting. I'm looking at Sandy up there at the back, because it's going to be interesting, isn't it? With if you've got older workers in your workforce,
Sorry, Sandy, you know, the old.
No. Sorry, Sandy, no. Walked right into that one. No, it was more about, it is more about the, you know, the issues, safety issues of older workers. I don't know.
No, it's about.
It's relevant, yeah, to work, especially for us, because our, you know, from my bi-monthly reports, you can see that our workforce is around 30% of our workforce is over 40. So we've got to really start working on that transition. It'll be interesting with the millennials, that's for sure. We're already seeing that we're struggling a little bit in that area, so we really need to get started on working on that.
Very good.
Very good.
Thank you. I'll move. Move, I'll second. Thank you. We receive the HR leaders forum. Thank you. Come on down, Sandy.
You've got to pass that bit.
Oh, yeah, and
All in favour?
in favour of it. Thank you.
You're right. You're a bit distracted there.
I was.
You're old, you're getting old.
I was getting old.
That's the issues we're going to have.
Maybe that's one of them, councillor Salt.
Manager of Safety and Wellness, Sandy Schofield, is here to present the bi-monthly Safety and Wellness report. As you indicate, it's very important information council needs to be aware of. So.
Thank you.
Sandy.
Good afternoon, councillors. The report presented today is for the period of January to February. And just a quick comment on that, Madam Chair, with the ageing workforce, that is something that we are focusing quite heavily in our area, particularly with underlying injury and illness that comes along with degenerative disease. So it is something that we need to get proactive with, and particularly working with the HR department as to what sort of programs can we put in place for people that are ageing, because we are seeing that older population in our workforce. So it's definitely something that's highlighted in our team, and with our fitness for work strategies that we're putting forward over the next probably 5 to 10 years. So, we had 23 incidents reported for the period. A total of those were 8 either first aid cases or recordable injuries. What we're seeing is an increase in incidents reporting, which is great. It's starting to show that maturity in our organisation. We're getting a lot more near miss and equipment damage reports coming through, which is fantastic, because to us that's a free opportunity to learn something and to prevent an incident. For example, we had a contractor incident reported recently where a contractor was operating a mini excavator out of the back of a job truck, loading equipment. That gave us an opportunity to stand that job down. We actually did an investigation into that, able to mentor that contractor. We linked them in with Work Safety IPM program. As a result of that, we've now got probably a safety advocate in the making from that contract organisation. So, but they're the sort of things that are happening, which is really promising, because it's those sort of things would never have been brought forward to our attention beforehand, and so that to me is a real good indicator of an reporting culture. The 2 recordable incidents, one was actually an aggravation of a pre-existing knee injury. So that worker was carrying a whipper snipper and loaded it into the back of a truck and stumbled and actually aggravated a pre-existing injury. The other one was where a worker slipped off a trickle filter arm at the Tieri sewage treatment plant, so that one's been investigated, and some engineering controls have been put in place there to help prevent that occurring again. So we currently we're sitting at our target for the year is 47 occupational injuries or illnesses, which is a 10% reduction on the previous financial year. We're currently sitting at 30. In saying that, last month, up until the reporting period of February, was quite good, considering we only had 3 injury or illnesses reported. However, this month is probably, you'll see a trend where it hasn't been so good. In the last 14 days, in the last week, we've had 14 incidents reported. Some of those are minor in nature and some of those are contractor incidents. But one in particular, we had a worker have an incident with a chainsaw out at one of our construction work areas, which resulted in him being flown to Brisbane for hand surgery. So that obviously is under investigation at the moment and taken very seriously from all involved in that one. To me, that's a
concerned around the severity that a couple of these incidents are coming or potential severity in that. So that's something that I'm working with the managers in that area at the moment, that we're trying to put in place some changes to quite quickly address some of those concerns, which I'll give you some more information on those in next bi-monthly report as some of the findings. But at the moment, I'm really super impressed with the response we've had from the workers in that area. These people that have been involved in these incidents, you know, previously would have shied away from being involved in an investigation. They would have thought that they were going to get in trouble if they came forward with information. They're actively participating. They're willing to take ownership of what's going wrong. The management teams and our teams are supporting them and mentoring them whilst holding them accountable if there's willful misconduct or anything there. But, you know, we're trying to use that positive reinforcement and make sure that we're learning from these incidents. That group will also be stood down to review all their risk management practices, and that in itself is a strong message where they actually are brought in. They have to sit down and actually have those conversations with their leadership team as well. So we're taking those very seriously and particularly as a learning opportunity to share that information across other work groups. Our lost time incident injury numbers for this year is actually lower, believe it or not. We're actually at 0.22 compared to lost time incident rates are 0.22 compared to 0.25 last year, and we're well below the group average at 0.97. The lost time injury frequency rate currently is sitting at 17.36 compared to 7.48 last year for the same reporting period, and it's slightly higher than the group average of 12.37. We currently have 11. With this financial year, we've had 11 workers' compensation claims accepted. We currently have 8 open claims being managed, and we've had 3 closed out recently. Lost time duration rate is currently sitting at 25.3 compared to we were sitting at 42.75 last year. This particular reporting statistic, I don't like to put a great deal of emphasis on this in some regard, because when an incident occurs, what happens is after that is how we care for the worker, and we take guidance from the doctors and specialists to ensure that they get the best care possible. So it's a statistic there for your benefit to know how long people are taking on average when they do there is a lost time injury, but at the same time keeping that in context that they're getting best possible care and that we support that care going forward for that worker. Obviously, it is always our goal to get the workers back to work as quickly as possible, but without putting that pressure on having that statistic there and saying that we need to get back into the workplace. It's more around what care can we provide in rehabilitation. So over the course of the last couple of months, our internal audit was focused on hazardous chemicals, and in actual fact that was a very comprehensive audit, and we've got a lot of information coming out of that needs to be filtered through. But probably the most important thing that we found was we weren't providing adequate storage facilities for hazardous chemicals. So that's something that we've taken quite seriously, and just as an example, we've run a clean-up. I don't know whether you were advised, but we had our organisational-wide clean up the depot day last week, and it was a fantastic effort by all concerned. So every depot actually had a working bee, and as part of that we looked at storage opportunities and what we can do to help improve ongoing standards, and we actually purchased 3 10-foot hazardous chemical storage containers that are now stored down at the Emerald Depot, and so that's going to eliminate a lot of that where we see fuels and oil drums and paints and that sitting around without the appropriate storage. So that's a finding and a recommendation that came out of those audits. Also, I'd like to just acknowledge the work that was done by some of our coordinators to pull that together, and our overseers. They did a fantastic job, and even the workers involved. It was a really hot day. They got in and they had the right attitudes, and my team and myself, we were all down there giving a hand, and it was just such a really good demonstration of, a great workforce and, the right attitudes. So just acknowledge the people that were involved in that clean-up day. Going forward, we're hoping to ensure that we have our monitoring process in place. We'll be looking at ensuring that there's safety tours done by our managers and coordinators in the areas, that there's scheduled work area inspections being done, and that we're really starting to get feedback from the workforce what they need to ensure that they can work safely in their workplaces. So we're looking for that feedback now around what do they need, so that we can make sure that they're provided the right tools and equipment to do their jobs well and safe. And next, our focus area, and I've spoken about this previously, is our emergency response and crisis management processes in council. We've just received, we conducted a risk assessment. It was just before Christmas that of all potential emergency scenarios at council in our workplaces. So we've got from that we then went and engaged a consultant to help us draft up an emergency management plan and a crisis management people response management plan. We've just received those back and we'll now start to work through those, and following on from that, once the executive leadership team accepts those and approves those to be included in our safety management system, we'll be looking at conducting some scenario-based training for our staff to equip them with the skills to manage some of these incidents on site. We're also trying to build some collaborative working relationships with our emergency services teams in around the Central Highlands, and particularly QPS. We're hoping to be able to improve our fire safety compliance and build on what we currently do at council by getting some expert assistance from those guys as well. So that's something that we'll be working on. I won't go through all the safety topics, they're there for your information in the report. The enforceable undertaking is on target, just for information that we've committed to delivering 49 deliverables. To date, we've delivered 24. They've all been on time and within budget. We're currently, our focus is preparing for another internal audit in April. First week of April, we'll have an external auditor to come out and do our second enforceable undertaking audit. And this week, we're running another certificate for the work health and safety competencies for, I think we've got about 12 people going through that today for this week. And then we've got another one of those to run through, I think, in June. So that'll bring our total of around 50 people that'll hold that qualification as a result of this training under the enforceable undertaking. Wellness, so, you know, we're continuing to offer health promotion activities. Last 2 months, we had a focus on around smoking, mental health and positive psychology. Our next quarter is targeted training around manual handling and ergonomics. So we've actually got people coming out into the workplaces and teaching our operators how to actually conduct their manual handling tasks, specifically to their machinery and what they do in the workplace. So that should be a really good process and hopefully informative for those people that have someone specifically out there showing them how to bend, how to kneel, how to set their chairs in their machinery properly. And, so I'll be looking forward to some feedback from that. And obviously flu vax is it's coming up to that time of year again, so there'll be some work in and around getting that program out. SWAT, so the Safety Wellness Activation Team, they have facilitated their first event for 2019, which was a barbecue get-together. We had a barbecue breakfast and a barbecue lunch, and part of that was I'm not sure if council has actually seen it, but Christine, for us, she's got a TED Talk, and it was a really informative and quite a different sort of topic to present to the workforce, but it was all around respect and, you know, she talks about the importance of civility and how we treat each other and how that becomes contagious within an organisation and how that can change the culture. So that was really well received by our SWAT team. So our focus going forward is to continue cleaning up the depots. From that, we want to develop a depot standard and roll that out right across the organisation to try and maintain that level of standard in the areas, and really probably focusing on getting some of this in-field leadership happening before the end of the financial year, so that we really want to start to see these safety observations, safety tours, you know, presence from our leadership teams in the workplaces and actually making a change. And if there's things that they can do to improve safety, well, then we need to start getting those brought forward for actioning. Thank you.
Comments? Thanks, Sandy.
Just drug and alcohol testing, is that still happening?
Yeah, we actually, there was haven't got the numbers, but there was the whole of propeller was actually tested only, I think, last week or the week before. So I can report that we had no non-negatives, which was fantastic. But I think there was about 32 people tested, so it is occurring on a monthly basis still, and I can include those stats actually in the next report for you, Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you. We received the bi-monthly safety and wellness report. Councillor Bennett, Councillor Nixon, in favour? Thank you. So, is there any general business? Nothing? I shall declare the meeting closed. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.